Everyone, I want to talk a little bit about my Las Vegas regional run. This was my first regional tournament of the season. I've been to one regional prior for TCG, specifically earlier this year. I went to the San Antonio regional, and I was like a couple wins from day two, so it's kind of close. I went 4-1-4 at that tournament, so a lot of ties. So going into this event, my big goal was to try to avoid ties. I really wanted to make day two. I had a very solid run overall, which, you know, round 8 ended up being a win and in situation to go to day two, which I'll get to. So overall, it was a really good event. Had a lot of fun going to this event. I felt very confident in the deck. I ended up playing Dragapult. You'll see on the screen, this is my list. Overall, the list felt pretty good. I did add one rare candy, which might be a little bit unusual. I know with Dragapult, you either play no candies or you play multiple candies. I just felt like adding one candy, you know, didn't really take up too much deck space, but it still kind of allowed me and kind of gave me the benefits of running candy pults. And I kind of found that throughout the tournament. There was only one game where I pulled off a turn 2 Dragapult, which wasn't really the goal of the candy. The candy was kind of more for like late game or kind of mid game, mostly to set up Dusknoir, which I found myself doing a lot. A lot of times I would kind of just draw into Hilda and rare candy, kind of allowed me to go for that. So yeah, rare candy felt good. The list felt pretty good overall. I might throw in a second candy. I'd probably cut like the second jamming tower, or maybe even nest ball, but nest ball felt pretty good too. I don't really want to cut that, so maybe the second jamming tower I would cut for another rare candy. Overall, list felt good. Felt confident in the deck, and I gotta say, like, throughout my rounds, you know, day one, I felt pretty confident overall. My losses and stuff like that mostly kind of felt out of my control. I definitely had a couple where I definitely was just outplayed, but for the most part, I felt like everything that I could control, I controlled in a way that I'm happy with. You know what I mean? So I can't really be mad at that. But yeah, going into the tournament, you know, Guardy's obviously a matchup where it's unfavorable. I felt pretty good against Guardy, even though it is unfavorable, but obviously still wanted to avoid it as best as I could. And then really the two matchups that I was kind of afraid of was Gholdengo, just because I had a lot of testing against Gholdengo. My friend that I went with, he played Gholdengo at the event, so, you know, I played against that deck a lot of times. I knew the game plan, and I also knew what it kind of looked like if the board ever was a certain way to where I can't really come back. And then the other deck I was kind of afraid of was Grimmsnarl, just because I feel like I haven't had that much practice against Grimm. That's a matchup where it's kind of the same as Gardevoir in a way, where you kind of just have to stop them from setting up early. You know, if they get like turn 1 secret box going, it can be very tough. So that's definitely a matchup that I was afraid of going into the event. Let's go ahead and go through my rounds here. I'll kind of talk about each of my matchups and how they went, and then after that I'll kind of just talk about the overall experience at the tournaments, and how everything kind of just went overall. So round 1, I look up my pairing and I see that I'm playing against a player from Japan. I knew there were going to be some Japanese players here, but I didn't really expect that many people to come. And I was talking with my opponent because we had time. You know, security was taking forever, so they delayed the tournament a little bit. He was telling me he came here with about 20 other people. Said he flew 14 hours and got here like the previous night at 6 o'clock. I'm like, that's crazy. I can't imagine the jet lag for that. Must be kind of crazy, but the guy was really cool. Yeah, so, you know, we start playing, and before the round started, I looked his name up to see if he had like a limitless page, and I saw that he had finishes with Gardevoir, and so I was like, great, I'm up against Gardevoir round 1. And so then, you know, we start and he flips over Monkey Dory, so I'm like, okay, it's Gardevoir round 1, you know, it is what it is. And then he goes for the Precious Trolley, and I was like, oh, it's actually Kangaskhan Absol. So yeah, he was playing the Absol box deck. Very interesting deck. This is a deck that can be kind of tricky for Dragapult just because they have Psyduck, obviously, but there are ways to kind of play around it. I think in this matchup, you have to be very careful of when you use your jamming towers. There are kind of 2 reasons. You obviously don't want to use it too early because they can just bump it with Lively Stadium. You really want to combo it in a turn where you can kind of use it to knock things out like Psyduck. But the issue too is that they have Absol, so you can't really hold on to it in your hand, because if they go for Claw of Darkness, they just discard it. So a lot of times you have to kind of play around it. You know, if you draw into it off of like Recon Directive, you might want to put it on the bottom of your deck instead, just to kind of save it for later on in the match. So it can be very tricky. It's definitely an interesting matchup, but our game 1 was pretty long. It went like 35 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. It was kind of just back and forth overall, and I kept going for really good Ionos. There were a lot of times where he had plays lined up and I would go for Iono and just kind of disrupt that. At the same time, he would go for Claw of Darkness and disrupt me. I remember that game, I prized my Neo Upper Energy and I took it off my prizes, and then next turn he hit me with Claw of Darkness and discarded it. So obviously nothing you can really do about that. So it was definitely back and forth. And at the end of the game, I was in a situation to where I needed 2 prize cards to win, and I think he also needed 2 prize cards to win. And he had a Kangaskhan in the active spot. It had a little bit of damage on it. I had a Badoo on my side of the board, and I had some other stuff too. And basically, he could have went for one of 2 plays. I think he went for the correct play by not knocking anything out. He was kind of just trying to buy another turn where he could basically win the game in 1 turn. He could have moved damage to knock out my Badoo, which would prevent me from using my Dusclops, because he would be at 1 prize left. But he decided not to go for that play, because he knew that for me to win, I basically just needed Boss's Orders, which I had in my hand earlier, and he Ioned it to the bottom, and it was my only copy left. So that was really kind of my only out. And then he, didn't knock me out, he passed. And I ended up top decking Professor Turos. And basically what that allowed me to do, I didn't even think of this play until I saw the Turo in my hand. I was able to basically make bench space for Blood Moon Ursaluna, attach for turn. I think I had another Jammy Tower that I put down. I popped the Dusclops on the Kangaskhan, and it put it basically at like, 240 health left, and I was able to knock it out with Blood Moon and win the game. So I actually ended up winning game 1 in a very close one. Game 2, I couldn't get set up at all. Right away, he powered up Mega Absol, Claw of Darkness. I had no hand. He just started farming me. So I scooped it up, and we went to game 3, which I kind of figured we wouldn't have time for, and we didn't have time for it. We each had a couple of turns, but there was really no obvious board state or anything like that. So we ended up tying, which I was honestly happy with because he was a very solid player. I looked it up. He ended up getting like 90th place overall. So he had a very solid run. I think he went day 1 undefeated and only had some ties. So I'm pretty happy with that, honestly. Like, I didn't think I could win game 1. I managed to clutch it out. Game 2, I got bodied, and then game 3, we just didn't have time. So overall, really solid round in a matchup that I felt pretty okay against overall. Round 2, I go against my opponent, and he flips over a Spheal, which I've never seen before. So immediately, I'm like, okay, I'm not sure what this is, but I did have a mulligan in game 1. He looked at my hand, and he seemed very upset that I was playing Dragapult. So I was like, okay, whatever it is, I'm sure it's favorable. This was an interesting deck list. I found it on Limitless here. It's basically, I guess, centered around Walrein, which has a very interesting attack that basically prevents you from attacking if you have like 2 or less energies on your Pokemon, which I guess in theory would be good for some matchups. The problem is you can't really set it up, especially against Dragapult, because item lock. So yeah, I basically both of these games were just itchy pollen. Whenever he did take a knockout, he had evolved into a Celio, so I just counter captured it up. He can't retreat it. He can't find Pokemon because he's item locked. So yeah, overall it was definitely kind of a quick 2-0. Very bad matchup for Dragapult, going into Dragapult. So I felt pretty good about it, and I was able to just go ahead and win it. Round 3, I was up against a Charizard, which obviously is a good matchup for Dragapult, which I managed to clutch out with a 2-0 victory. My game 1 here, they weren't able to set up Pidgeot, and they kind of prioritized setting up their attackers, which I don't think was wrong, because I was basically kind of getting set up pretty fast, and it's kind of hard to set up Pidgeot when it has 60 HP. If I'm already kind of set up, you have to really commit to like double Pidgey, which can just be free prize cards, essentially. So I think he definitely went for the right play. He wasn't able to set up Pidgeot. Item lock was very strong. I was able to kind of just take multiple prize cards at once. And what I didn't really see on the board was he actually did have a Briar play, and he was telling me that afterwards. And when he said that, I was like, oh yeah, he actually had a way to kind of get Briar and win the game, but he wasn't able to find all the pieces. So I was able to win game 1. Game 2, I really kind of focused on the attackers this time around because he got Pidgeot set up pretty quickly, if I remember correctly. So I remember basically at one point he only had like a Charizard in play, and I think I had like a Dusknoir on board. I basically kind of created like a checkmate kind of board state, where like no matter what he did, I kind of had a way out, so I was able to kind of clutch it out and just win 2-0. Round 4 was Gholdengo, which I was trying to dodge for as long as possible, and this went kind of badly. This was the one loss that I feel like was out of my control. I kind of bricked. Like, I did not have good hands, I'm gonna be honest. My opponent played well for sure, but I just felt like I had pretty bad luck this time around. Game 1, I was like 5 or 6 turns in. I didn't have a single Dracloak on board. I could not find Dracloak. All I had were GPs, Duskulls. I had no way of getting more. I kept going for Lilies and I would just like draw into nothing. Game 2, I had to go for a very risky play. I had him under item lock. He had 3 Gimmighoulls on board. I had like a Dusclops and everything. And basically, I Ultra Balled to find Hawlucha, which was like the one card I needed to wipe all 3 Gimmighoulls. And I realized it was prized. And so what I did was I popped Dusclops because I think one of his Gimmighoulls had 20 damage on it already. And I was like, you know what? Let me just see if I draw into it off my prize cards. And sure enough, my one prize card was Hawlucha. I was able to put down Hawlucha, wipe all the Gimmighoulls, and he scooped it up. And game 3, of course, I had to go first, which you never want to do in this matchup, I feel like. And I had Peasantipity, attach, and pass. And I just couldn't get anything going. He was already set up, and like I said, I've played the matchup a million times. I already know once they get set up, it's very hard to claw your way back, and I couldn't get it going. I was glad that we were able to finish 3 games. It feels very nice to be able to play a 3-game set and not have to, you know, be called for time. So yeah, that was very nice, but unfortunately, I just wasn't able to get it done in round 5. Or round 4, I guess. Round 5, I was able to get it done. I played against TeraBox. It was a very interesting build because it had no Noctowls and it had like an Ogerpon engine. So definitely a little bit unusual for TeraBox, but still very interesting matchup. You know, you have to watch out for Waterpon, of course. But I kind of knew going into TeraBox, a lot of times, if they go for those early snipes, you can just Iono them. If they don't have a board set up, then they kind of have no way of coming back, and that's exactly what happened here. They were able to, you know, get the early snipe. I was able to just kind of item lock for a little while, buy me some time, and then I was able to take 4 prize cards in 1 turn. He only had 2 Pokemon in play, so he ended up losing the game off of that. Game 2, I simply got outplayed. He was just able to take prize cards faster than me and just start knocking stuff out. And game 3 was definitely kind of crunch time. We were running out of time. I kind of knew what I had to go for. I just wasn't sure if I would have the time to do it. And luckily for me, I basically won on the last turn of the game. They were just about to call time. There was like 20 seconds left and it was my turn. So I knew I wasn't gonna get another turn, but I was able to take a 4 prize knockout and win the game. Round 6 was my next loss against, of course, the other deck that I didn't want to see, which was Grimmsnarl. This was an interesting one because in both game 1 and 2, I found myself in situations where I was like, okay, like I'm winning, like how do I lose this? And I still lost, you know what I mean? So I feel like this game for sure, I definitely got outplayed. Shout out to my opponent. He made day 2. I think he had a pretty solid run overall. And yeah, I definitely just got outplayed. Like, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, you know what I mean? Obviously, you know, I'm not even gonna say luck was involved because I simply just got outplayed. Like game 1, I went for a play at the end and I thought I pretty much had the game lined up, and I forgot that he has Blood Moon Ursaluna, so he was able to move damage over and knock me out. And then game 2, I had a huge lead. I wiped his board from all of his Impidimps, and he managed to come back and basically just beat me. He had so much damage across my board that I definitely misplayed. I feel like there was a turn where I passed where I should have done something else, but yeah, I simply got outplayed. Solid deck, solid opponent, and yeah, he had a solid run overall, so happy for that. Round 7 was definitely an interesting one. I always hate being at this part of the tournament where you're basically in a situation where if you lose, you're out, or if you tie, you're also out. Just because it creates the whole argument for gentlemen's agreements and all that stuff, and I hate doing it. Like, I hate the system. I kind of want to make a whole video just talking about the gentleman's agreement in general. I think it's just the dumbest thing, but it's like you have to kind of do it if you want to actually advance. So yeah, it always sucks having to do that. Yeah, at this point in the tournament, I was 3-2-1. You have to finish 5-2-1 or better in order to advance into day 2. I sit down. First thing my opponent asks is if I'm going for my Worlds invite, which I feel like is already a bad sign when people ask that. And so then he asked if we want to do some kind of gentleman's agreement. And my philosophy with this is I feel like doing a board state gentleman's agreement, I just feel like there's no solution with that. Like, I hate doing that, you know what I mean? Because you're gonna argue your point, I'm gonna argue my point, and if you were okay with me winning, you wouldn't ask for the gentleman's agreement in the first place, because the whole point of a gentleman's agreement is you're giving yourself a chance to win. So I would rather do it based off of prizes, and that's what I told him. I said I'd rather do prize cards, even though with my deck Dragapult, it's very unfavored, right? Like, it takes time to set up. I'm not taking prize cards right away. Like, I'm probably gonna lose that like 9 out of 10 times if it gets, if it goes to time. So I was like, okay. But he wanted to kind of say like, we'll figure it out when we get there, kind of leaning more towards board state. And I said, okay, that's fine. So game one, this was Gholdengo I faced, which you definitely, I feel like, would want to do a gentleman's surprise cards. So game one, I was able to clutch it out. I kept a lot of damage on board. I was always kind of worried of Turo. That's the one thing in that matchup where a lot of times they're running 2 Turo now and Picnic Basket, so you kind of have to be careful with how you leave damage on the board because they have ways to just completely remove it and just kind of nullify your turn. Luckily, they weren't able to do that, and I was able to clutch it out. It was kind of a little bit of a longer game one, I would say. If I remember correctly, it was like 25 minutes, something like that. But we still had a lot of time for like game two, and probably no time for game three. So game two, I had a pretty solid position. I set myself up pretty nicely to where I could win next turn. And in order for him to win, he basically had to have like 7 energies in hand to knock out my Dragapult. I think I owned him down to 2, something like that. And I think he had 2 Gholdengos in play, if I remember correctly. So not a whole lot of draw power, but he was able to find it and force a game 3, which we had like 4 minutes for. So again, going into game 3, I said, okay, so how do you want to do this? Like, but not a lot of time left. You want to just do it based off of prizes? How do you want to do it? No, we'll do it on board state. Like, we'll figure it out when we get there. Okay. Like, we'll see, like, who's in the better position, basically. I said, okay. Very surprised at that because he's playing Gholdengo with Soul Rock, and Soul Rock typically takes a turn 1 knockout. And, with my deck, you can't really do that as much. And we only had like 3 or 4 minutes left, so we didn't have a whole lot of time. But I said, okay, sure. So we, go into the game. And of course, since I had lost game 2, I got to pick if I wanted to go first or second. I obviously chose seconds. He goes turn 1, and I think he had Soul Rock and Lunatone down and 1 Gimmick Ghoul. And I have the craziest hand. I get like double Buddy Poffin, so I've got 3 Dreepies set up, a Duskull. I've got Itchy Pollen lined up. I think I had a Latias on board to retreat to it. I don't remember, but I know I basically got the item lock going, and I basically made it to where he couldn't set up any other Gimme Ghouls, all while I'm drawing cards with Lilies, and I'm basically, after that, evolving my stuff. Like, I'm basically set up to win the game. And so then, it's his turn. They call time. He knocks me out with Soul Rock, and I'm like, okay, like, how do you want to decide this? We kind of go through it. We go turn by turn. And eventually he agrees that I basically have the better board state, just because he only had 1 Gimme Ghoul down. He had no way of benching more because he was under item lock. And I would have drawn into Rare Candy Dusknoir. So I could have knocked that out even if he put down another one and just continue to keep him under item lock until I'm fully set up. So basically I had an insane board state off of my opening hand, and I would have won. So we ended up giving myself the win. To advance into round 8 for a win and in situation, which was against another Gholdengo. So yes, I went all 8 rounds dodging Gardevoir. I dodged Dragapults all tournaments, but I faced 3 Gholdengos and 1 Grimmsnarl, which were the 2 decks that I didn't want to see. So yeah, I sit down, my opponent, he's got the Gholdengo sleeves, the Gholdengo coins. I was like, okay, I think he's playing Gholdengo. There's a good chance, right? So yeah, I started talking with him, and we're talking and stuff, and he was a super nice dude. And yeah, this was another one where I definitely feel like I kind of got outplayed. I obviously could have had some better hands and things like that, but I definitely feel like I made some misplays in this one. I think game 1 I should have kept him under item lock a little bit longer. There was a turn where I was kind of 1 piece away from what I was wanting to do, and I decided to attack instead of keeping him under item lock, and that just kind of put me behind. And then game 2, he went first, I went seconds, and turn 1, he had all the pieces. He put down the Lunatone, the Soul Rock, he had the Buddy Poffin for multiple Gimme Ghouls. Yeah, I think he got the Genesect out as well, so he was like completely set up like turn 1. So again, it's very difficult once they got to get set up to kind of come back. And even though my opening hand I don't think was bad, it was just kind of like he had a really good like turn 1 going first hand. That just kind of allowed him to start kind of steamrolling me. So overall, definitely got outplayed that one. And yeah, I overall felt pretty good about the tournament. I finished 4-3-1, 1 win away from making day 2. Wasn't able to clutch it out in the last round, but again, I felt pretty good. You know, I got outplayed, I feel like, against the Grimmsnarl. I feel like I got outplayed in my last round against Gholdengo. My other loss, I definitely kind of bricked, unfortunately. And then my round 1 tie, again, I'm pretty happy with that. You know, game 1 went crazy. It was back and forth. Game 2, I got bodied. And then game 3, we just kind of ran out of time, unfortunately. Overall, I did finish top 1,000. I finished 700 and something, I think 766, something like that. So I did get some championship points. I wasn't able to make day 2, which I'm very sad about, but I was just 1 win away, so I'm feeling pretty good. You know, I think next time I can definitely do it. I'll have to kind of decide what deck it's going to be. The next tournament I'm planning on going to will probably be Seattle, which is kind of, you know, it's a ways away. We're in November right now. It's like late February when that happens, so I've got plenty of time to kind of figure out what deck I want to play. I think right now I'm going to spend some time on Kanga Absol. Definitely seems like a really fun deck. I'm kind of burnt out on Dragapult right now, not gonna lie. So we're gonna kind of take a little break from that. But yeah, man, it was really cool. You know, there are definitely some interesting situations at the venue. There was like 1 bathroom in the whole venue until later on in the event. We also tried the new online reporting system, which I think in theory is good, but I feel like it's mostly good for like day 2. I think day 1 is very chaotic. It created like 40-minute delays between rounds. And then eventually they made an announcement that they're going to switch back to just doing the paper slips. And the whole venue started cheering. Everyone was happy about that. And it went way faster. So I think right now the paper slips are the way to go. And yeah, I just had a lot of fun, man. It's just fun to play Pokemon. You know, I think the last regional I went to, my first one, I felt very tired, kind of burnt out, you know, all that kind of stuff. This one I felt very prepared going into. I played my deck a lot. I know all the 60 cards. I felt pretty good against most matchups. And yeah, I managed to dodge Gardevoir all day, which was nice. I just ran into a lot of Gholdengo, which I knew the matchup, but wasn't able to clutch it out, unfortunately. And yeah, on to the next one. That's all I can really say. But yeah, if you guys had a chance to go ahead and attend the tournament, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about how you did, what deck you played, all that kind of stuff. Even if you didn't go, just let me know what you kind of thought if you had a chance to watch it. There were definitely some exciting matches. Today I'm going to kind of go back and watch some of the stream games because I know the finals was like crazy. So I'm really excited to watch that, and I'm just really excited to play the game. Like, I feel good about the game. You know, I feel like I've put a lot of practice into it, and I definitely think that I can make day 2. I just have to kind of clean up certain matchups, and I think I just have to go into an event with a better game plan. Like, with Gholdengo and Grimmsnarl, those were the 2 matchups I didn't want to see, but I also didn't necessarily have a good game plan against them, I feel like. Gholdengo, I know what I should be going for, but when things go south, it's like, how do I kind of claw my way back out of it, you know what I mean? So I think I need to figure that out better, especially for decks that are like most of the meta share. So I would definitely clean that up before the next one, and hopefully we can get that first day 2 finish. But yeah, that's it for this one, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you want me to vlog the next one. Maybe I'll do that. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.